friends, I thought I would just take a minute today to do an initial video and talk about how chemo is going. I haven't talked a tremendous amount about chemo on YouTube, so I thought maybe this would be a helpful video just for anybody who's kind of coming along and who is experiencing this adventure as well. It's a little bit hard with chemotherapy to like find that article that's going to tell you what it's going to be like, or there's just really nothing that you can read or whatever that's going to tell you exactly how it's going to be or how it's going to feel. And that's just a part of life. There's no way of really knowing. And I think my first probably 3 rounds went really well, and I was probably doing so well that it was a little bit difficult to believe I was actually sick. And so that was kind of the thing is about chemo is that it's cumulative. So whatever the first one throws at you, it's the same, they throw the same drugs at you, but the effect kind of stacks up in the body. So it's so the nature of the beast is that it does not get easier. If anything, it gets harder. So like those first 3 rounds were just not a big deal for me. But this one has been hard. This one has been hard. And I think one of the things that they don't really tell you is that how hard it is for the spouse. And it was really hard for Xavier, who canceled we had 2 things that we were looking forward to last weekend, and I just wasn't well enough to go. And that was really hard for him because one of them was a professional thing that would have been really good for us professionally to have been there. And it was hard not to be able to go to that, but he looked at me and knew I wasn't up to it, and I'd been trying to psych myself into it, like, I need to do this for my husband's sake, I need to do this for my sake, but I just don't know how I'm going to be able to do it. And he, bless his heart, he jumped the gun and wrote the email before we even had a chance to talk about it, and he just took it off the table, which was such a relief. It was such a relief. So yeah, I mean, don't plan anything that is too important during chemo, because you may not be able to keep the appointment. And it just is what it is. I mean, chemo has a very predictable curve. Like, for me, I'm getting a good bit of steroids in it because because I was having an asthmatic reaction the first 2 times. So they added some steroids. So I think the steroids, when I get home from chemo, I'm like, go, because the steroids just kind of have me like hopped up. And so I'll come home from chemo and not be able to sit still. And that's normal for me. I mean, it's not normal for me, but it's kind of normal for me for chemo. So, and then the Neulasta shot is the 2nd day. And that one is, I think, is it a white blood cell thing? I don't remember. It shoots off, I think, the white blood cells. I don't remember. It's all kind of a lot because it's a lot of drugs and it's pretty intense, the chemo infusion day. So it's easy to kind of forget what's what, and that's fine. I think one of the things that I have found was that it was easy early on to make all of these big declarations, like, you know how you read that sugar is the cause of cancer, and if you starve, if you quit eating sugar, then that will starve the cancer and it'll go away, and you know. So it's easy to say, that's fine, no more sugar, we'll never eat sugar again. And then you read about how various meat products can be a part of the thing, and so, oh yeah, I'm gonna be a vegetarian. You know what? I really want to caution you against like these bold declarations at the beginning, like I'm not eating this ever again, and I am completely, becoming a vegetarian and all of this, because there are times when your body will say, I can't eat that, and you're just going to have to eat whatever it is you have handy that your body can handle. So if that means you are that you're a vegetarian and you're off the wagon, you're just gonna have to deal with the reality that the nausea of chemo is different than any other kind of nausea. I mean, the nurse navigator told me, she said, look, the nausea with chemo is not something that you can deal with ginger ale and saltines, not that you would. So I think it's really important. And people are so sweet and they're like, oh, if you just eat kimchi, oh, if you just have this, oh, if you just have that, thinking that chemo nausea is normal nausea. It's not. It's in a class by its own. And so what I want you to know is that whatever it is that you can eat, you need to eat. When you can eat, and because sometimes it'll be a smell, and I can't eat because the smell is just ugh, the feeling of just triggered by the smell. Or there's texture things that are not usually an issue for me. Like yesterday I got a little tiny bit of chicken skin, and it was it was a huge trigger, and this is not usually a trigger for me. But it was a huge nausea trigger, just boom. So I know, going into chemo, oh yes, we're going to make all these declarations about how we're never eating this again, we're never having sugar, we're never having, we're never eating meat again, especially fat, and, all of the things that you read to avoid, oh yeah, we're going to avoid those. But when it comes down to chemo nausea, you need to eat, and you need to eat what you can, and if that's a piece of chicken, then eat the chicken, and if it's a piece of pie, eat the pie. I've twice now made strawberry pies because we have a friend with a farm and they've given us fresh strawberries, and so the best way that I could think of was to make strawberry pie. It didn't have a lot of sugar in it, and it was in my gluten-free crust, but it's just so good. And believe it or not, that's the kind of thing that, I don't really feel bad about eating the pie. I don't, because it was fresh strawberries and they were wonderful, and there wasn't a lot of sugar with it. But yeah, I think beware of big declarations, because they're really not going to be a big help, especially when the nausea hits, and it will, and it's part of it. It's part of it. Another thing was the chemo brain fog, and this was really, really hard at first. And I think of it a little bit like cigarette smoking, or some of those other things that we may do or have done, like alcohol consumption, that kind of make things your body kind of gets used to, if that makes sense. Like, for example, at the very beginning, first chemo just made it so hard for me to keep a thought in my head, and for me to finish the sentence, and for me to find that elusive word. And this is not something I'm great about anyway. So it was really hard sometimes to find the words I was trying to come up with. But it seemed like my brain kind of got used to having those drugs in my system, and that it did kind of get better. So that's one instance where instead of getting worse, it got better, thankfully, because brain fog is not fun. I think another area where it's got increasingly challenging is just energy levels have been really, really kind of challenging, because like there's the chemo curve is like there's a couple of days at the very beginning, just after the infusion, that I have pretty good energy, like the first day or two, and then you can feel the curve go. and then it's called nadir. I'm not quite sure on the pronunciation, Nadir, but basically it means you tank. Your energy level goes south, and that's like, for me, chemo has been on Mondays. There's one time when Monday was a holiday, so it was on a Tuesday, but by the following weekend, I'm just pretty much in bed or in my recliner and not really able to do a whole lot. And so that's, I think that's kind of gotten increasingly true. Last time I had a little bit of fever in addition, and that's not good. Xavier was keeping a really close eye on me, and I'm just so grateful to have him, because he really cares about me, and he'll be like, can I get you something? And usually it's like, no, I mean, because I really want to keep doing things for myself so that I don't like turn into a little ball of useless mush. But so he'll make me a cup of tea, or whatever. It's always just so kind. But it's hard though when he's made a good meal and it smells good and it looks good, but you put it in your mouth and there's something about the spice combination that you just can't tolerate, and so it has to come back out, and it's hard. Because if it's hard for those things not to feel personal, when you cook for somebody and they're not eating it, or worse yet, you see it coming back out. It's challenging. Chemo is challenging on a lot of levels. The costs of chemo, the costs of medical treatment, that's a whole thing in itself. I mean, my first chemo treatment was $97,000. That's just one. That kind of emotional aspect of the costs of I mean, I have health insurance, but that's not all covered. Not at all. So yeah, there's a lot to this thing of this mental game of trying to stay in a positive place, trying to stay in a hopeful place, dealing with the physicality of not being able to do the things that you feel like you want to do, not having the strength or the energy to do some things, literally spending a few days in bed every now and then. It's just not the easiest thing, and nobody expects it to be easy. That's not coming as a surprise, I don't think. But I think it's really important to know that you don't know what you're getting into, and to just have a lot of grace with yourself and the people around you, because sometimes you're not going to be able to go to the thing that you wanted to go to. Sometimes you're not going to be able to eat the food that somebody really cooked specifically for you. Sometimes you're not gonna, I mean, sometimes you're gonna look in the mirror and see your naked bald head, and it's, that may not feel very good on that day. I've actually been noticing that it seems like chemo has advanced my aging process, and I've got some, or maybe it's that my hair used to cover some of this stuff, I don't know. But I've got some signs of aging that are pretty obvious right now. And looking in the mirror and just not seeing what you're used to seeing. I liked my long hair. I liked it. It's kind of a hassle. I've always loved my short pixie cut more, because it's so much easier. But I think I might eventually get one of those again once this stuff starts growing out a little bit more. Yeah, and the bald head thing, sometimes the air will hit it and it's cold. So that's an unusual sensation. If you move your head on the pillow and hit a new cold spot, your hair's not there to buffer it like it would be usually. Temperature changes and that kind of thing. So I think it's really important to know that you can't know what you're getting into before you go to your first chemo. It's probably not going to be as bad as you fear. And there's probably places where it's going to be a little bit more challenging than you expect. It's not going to be easy. And you know what? That's okay. It's okay to have the complex emotions. It's okay to be like, I'm so over this. I'm so done. I'm so sick of this. Could my body just please get with the program for a change? It's okay to have all the feelings, and to have kind of a sense of grieving. I guess I'm just realizing now that there is a sense of grieving of my sense of invincibility, of my sense of health, of my sense of, I got away with a lot. I mean, I've always kind of taken care of myself to some degree, but I don't think that I've taken care of myself as well as I could have. And I'm not going to walk around with a lot of shame about that. I'm just aware that it's really important to take care of yourself. And sometimes we don't really have that full awareness until we have a sense of losing something that we had taken for granted. And it's kind of normal. You know, it is. It's kind of normal. So if you are in chemo now, my solidarity with you. Keep the faith. Hang in there. Your final chapter is not written. Today can be hard. Tomorrow can be hard. But that doesn't mean that you are down for the count. There is always, as long as you are here, as long as you are on this side of the divide, there is another day. And the outcome is not written in stone. You breathe, you live, you survive, you stretch, you exercise to the degree you can, eat whatever your stomach will allow, sleep to the best of your ability. Pardon me, that's an important one. The sleep is challenging. Do what you can, because right now it's about taking care of you. It's about being gentle with yourself and let go of some of the declarations and some of the, you know, all of those things that we say we'll never do. It's okay to let go of some of that stuff. It's good to have grace with yourself. Eat what you can, eat when you can. Take care of yourself. Yeah. May the Lord bless you and keep you and continue to walk with you in this journey. I think that's one of my takeaways, is that God has been with me in ways that I don't know that God has ever been with me. And that I've also had periods where I was just like, Jesus, where are you? And felt nothing. But that doesn't mean, just because I felt nothing, doesn't mean that God's not there. So it's a time for faith, and it's a time for people to pray for you in ways that they maybe never have before, and that's a good thing. And it's okay to lean on people right now. This is a good time for leaning. Okay? It's been good to hang out with you, and thanks for hanging out with me. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you are walking through, and I will be very privileged to pray for you and just continue being present, because I know that there are a lot of people that show up in your initial diagnosis, and you know, if you put out the news on social media, then you get all of these messages, and you're gonna realize that, like, the Cancer Club is the best club in the world. It's a club nobody wants to be in, but the best people are in this crowd, and that's amazing. Getting the messages, hearing what people have to say, hearing the support, feeling the support, all of that's amazing. But it doesn't change the reality that there will be a day when you're alone and you are not feeling it. It is tough and it sucks, and you're sick of not feeling good, and you don't know what pill to pick up and take or what food to eat or what is going to make it feel better, because some days there won't be anything that will. And there will be a time when you're alone and feeling pretty miserable, and that's absolutely normal. And it's okay. It's going to be okay. Hang in there. Determination is a thing. You're going to be okay. All right? You know, I realize I'm saying you're going to be okay. I may not be okay. You may not be okay. We don't know, but we do know that we're not alone. Not completely. Sometimes we feel alone, but that doesn't mean that God's not present. So, thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. And stick around. Let's walk this journey together. Amen? Amen.